All right, I think we're ready to roll.
All right, folks, we're back. A lot to get to today. Music, film, TV. We've got an X-Men 97 updated review. We'll be talking about Civil War, shockingly cleaning up at the box office. Plus, we'll be taking a look at a severely underrated Mel Gibson film that I just saw for the first time. But first up, story number one, John Mellencamp walks out. I missed the initial event when it happened last month, but John Mellencamp recently came out and semi-addressed the incident. He's doing the show in Toledo, solo acoustic set. Apparently that's all he's doing anymore, at least right now, and he's telling a story between songs. I'm going to play this clip. This is from TikTok user Papa Shoe. This is from that Toledo show. Here we go.
Well, I shouldn't have said that, because here came that little arthritic finger right in my face, and she went, "It's just like you, buddy, to be a smart aleck when I'm talking to Jesus."
Okay, so we have no context to the story at this point, and we never get it either. So, okay, heckler just said play some music. Audience upset, booing.
What do you think I've been doing?
Mellencamp starts cussing him out. I'm doing this if you're listening to audio, can't really hear what's going on.
Now, here's the thing, man. You don't know me. You don't know me. Hey, Joe, find this guy and let me see him after the show.
Okay, get a little threat in there. Find this guy, let me see him after the show.
Anyway, before I was so rudely interrupted,
It's going to get back to the story. Somebody just yelled authority song.
guys, I can stop this show right now and just go home.
Grandma was waving her arthritic finger.
They're begging him not to stop the show.
Tell you what I'm going to do. Since you've been so wonderful, I'm going to cut about 10 songs out of the show. Here we go.
Okay, he says he's going to cut 10 songs out of the show because they're so rude. He's interjecting Diane.
Show's over.
You know what? Show's over, walks off stage. If you're just listening to this, if you can't hear the audio, that's why I'm narrating here. And he's gone, and that's the clip. All right, so this part isn't being reported everywhere, but he did come back after about 5 to 10 minutes and finish the show. And he may have intended to do that when he walked off. It looks to be like, from his facial expressions and delivery, again, if you're listening to this on audio and not seeing the actual clip, that when he started playing Jack and Diane, he intended to stop and walk off. Not that he started playing and then decided, no, I'm not doing this, and then walked off. And I could be wrong, but regardless, he has a little bit of a history of hitting back at fans, hecklers in the audience, and also getting mad and walking out of situations he's not happy with. Now, I like Mellencamp's music. I've never taken the plunge into his catalog, but his hits are some of the few songs from the 80s that I even listen to. He reminds me a lot of John Fogerty, my favorite artist of all time, and I know he and Fogerty have collaborated. So Mellencamp gave an interview to the Washington Post a couple of weeks ago, and even though he didn't talk about the Toledo dust-up directly, he addressed his expectations of his audience. Here's a quote. "I do expect etiquette inside of the theater, the same way you would at a Broadway show. My shows are not really concerts anymore. They're performances. And there's a difference between a performance and a concert. Look, I'm not for everyone anymore. I'm just not. And if you want to come and scream and yell and get drunk, don't come to my show." Okay, so he's only doing this listening room style show now. And I've done those, and from an artist perspective, they're the best. It's just you, your guitar, and the audience. The people that come to those shows are often music people, and they're there to hear the songs as songs, not as ditties that they can dance to, sing to, and get drunk to. And Mellencamp's got a fair point here about practicing decorum, not just in concerts, at performances, but I would say public in general, or just in your life in general. But I look at this as both an artist and a music fan, and I was the latter long before I was the former. We don't have the context of the story, again, and we don't know what he was saying. I don't. I guess people there at the concert knew, but there's been conflicting reports over what he was actually talking about. Some people are saying he was talking politics. It was a political story, and if it was something political, I think anybody going to a Mellencamp show would already know Mellencamp's views and that he's vocal about them. So if it was something political, I would expect the audience to be prepared for that. That they might get that at the concert. If they disagree with his political views, that they might get upset with it. But we don't know. I don't know what it was. We do get him talking about, it sounds like an elderly woman scolding him for being a smart aleck while she was quote-unquote talking to Jesus. So maybe this was a story that came off as blasphemous or religiously offensive to somebody, which is understandable. Regardless, if I'm in the audience at a show and the performer says something so offensive or affronting to me that I feel compelled to act, I just leave. I get up and leave. Because shouting at the performer is going to accomplish nothing positive. You're never going to have the performer respond back, "Oh, okay, I'm sorry, here we go. 3, 2, 1, and then cheerily start the next song. It's just not going to happen. So the only thing that this accomplished was giving Mellencamp meat for his next Washington Post interview and content for guys like me on the internet. But as an artist, I would never do that to my audience. And I played shows where the crowd was less than friendly. Obviously, I'm not in Mellencamp stratosphere, and realistically, never will be. But these people paid good money to hear the show. And based on the audio, the bulk of them were on Mellencamp's side. So even if he's mad at a couple of the people that were negatively vocal, the hecklers in the group, that's no reason to punish the rest of the audience. Also, while I understand the distinction he's trying to make between concert and performance, that the former is full band, arena, and the latter is quite intimate, they're really the same thing. A concert is a musical performance, and a musical performance is a concert, and Mellencamp just comes off as a snob when he says that to me. So, what do y'all think? If you're watching, listening to this on a platform that allows for comments, let us know if you think Mellencamp was justified or just a jerk. All right, story number 2. Civil War makes an impressive box office stand. Now, this one was a little surprising to me. Civil War, this is a new dystopian film from sci-fi director Alex Garland. Came out a few weeks ago. I did a trailer review for this back in March, and it did not look appealing to me personally at all. I was not a fan of Garland's Annihilation, and I said I thought Civil War was going to flop hard, both critically and commercially, but I was wrong. Totally missed that one. It's in its third week, and it's doing quite well for an independent release. It's certainly not putting up the studio blockbuster numbers, but it's made $71 million worldwide that they were shooting this, 56 domestically. That's against a $50 million production budget before marketing, and that also makes it the highest grossing film to date from A24 Films. It's also got good reviews from critics and audiences, 81, 71% respectively on Rotten Tomatoes, although the audience score has been ticking down as more people have seen the movie, so that bodes a little more ominously for the quality of the film, or at least how it's being received by general audiences, and that's probably going to tick down some more as it hits home video release here shortly. It still doesn't look appealing to me either, so I doubt I'm going to be checking this out. Maybe when it hits a streaming service, maybe, but regardless, it is a win for the studio. And I admit completely that I missed the mark on this one. And I think it's a positive sign for the industry when an independent original property can achieve some success in theaters. And A24 has been really increasingly over the years just turning out one critical and financial success after another. I've seen some of their films. A couple of them I thought were really good. One I saw was Mississippi Grind. I was able to go catch a special screening of that as part of the Recording Academy, as being a member of the Recording Academy. That I thought was a really good film. A couple of other ones, not so much my taste, but it does give me hope for filmmaking that original pictures can still be made, can still find an audience, can still have success at the box office. So we'll see how this plays out, and we'll see also if other independent movie studios start being able to duplicate this level of success, and A24 continues to grow. So we'll see. We'll be looking out for this, and might check Civil War out when it hits streaming. Speaking of film receptions that blow my mind, story number 3, the great Mel Gibson movie that Mel Gibson hates. The Professor and the Madman. It's a star of Mel Gibson and Sean Penn, two phenomenal actors. This movie flew completely under most people's radar, including mine, when it was released in 2019. It's a historical drama biopic about the 19th century Scottish linguist who headed the Oxford Dictionary Project and the insane American ex-cavalry physician that helped him do it. It was excoriated by critics. It's got a 39% tomato score and made virtually nothing at the box office. So this was the kind of flop I thought Civil War was going to be, and it wasn't. But since this is the only genre of film that my wife and I both enjoy, and it was free on Tubi, we decided to give it a go, and frankly, it was one of the best films I've seen in years. The acting is superb. The directing and cinematography are excellent. It's a story of faith, forgiveness, friendship, love, redemption. Gritty, yet ultimately uplifting. The period setting is atmospheric and made even more engaging by the based on true story plot. The third act runs slightly astray, out of focus, less believable than its taut and realistic predecessors. Still, there isn't anything in the film that should earn the vitriol of the critical world. Certainly not for Mel Gibson himself. And that's the crazy part. I researched the film after I watched, and apparently the studio, Volt Pictures, wouldn't give co-writer-director Farhad Safina, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, I probably just butchered it, final cut. They would not give him final cut, and that prompted Gibson's production company, Icon Pictures, to file multiple lawsuits against the studio. The director here, he is a longtime partner of Mel Gibson. Mel was producing the flick. Originally, Mel was going to direct, and then he handed it over to this guy who had worked with him on Apocalypto, I think Passion of the Christ, maybe their first collaboration. So this was all kind of a Mel Gibson passion project. And the studio they partnered with wouldn't give the production company final cut. Lawsuits ensued. The suits were settled out of court, which resulted in Mel and Safina disavowing the film. And Safina actually ended up being credited pseudonymously as P.B. Sherman. So his name isn't even anywhere on the credits. It currently sits with a Rotten Tomato audience score of 80% and an IMDb rating of 7.2 out of 10. So the people who have seen this film give it overwhelmingly positive marks. The problem is few people seem to have seen it. If you like Mel, if you like Sean Penn, gritty period pieces, and stories with virtuous themes that aren't handled with a lead touch, go check out The Professor and the Madman. I think you're going to love it. I certainly did. This has immediately become definitely a top 5 of the last 10 years, maybe even the last 20 years for me. Great film. If that sounds like something you're interested in, go check it out. Story number 4, X-Men 97 is going downhill. I reviewed the first 3 episodes of X-Men 97 earlier this month. We're shooting this at the end of April. I'm not sure when we're actually going to get the full video out on YouTube. I hope to have the podcast audio up before May 1st. I had actually seen the 4th episode whenever I did that review, but I didn't get into it other than saying I didn't think it was as strong as the first 3. But I'll try to talk about that 4th episode in this review too. And I'll try to have a link to go check out the full review of the first 3 episodes in the description. But the short version of what I said in that first review, I thought the animation was great. I loved most of the fan service, and I thought it was smart that the writers used the original series as more of a general backstory and didn't shy away from creating new continuity for the show. On the negative side, I had issues with some of the X-Men being overpowered, some heavy-handed and cheesy dialogue, and on a personal note, I was bummed it was too adult to watch with my kids like I do the original series. Overall, I gave the show a 7 out of 10 quality rating and a 6 out of 10 personal enjoyment rating, and I said that I was looking forward to the next episodes. Well, I'm now through episode 7, which at the time we're filming this, that's all that's come out. There may be some more come out by the time you're watching this or by the time we even get it released. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to downgrade my rating for now from what it was on that first review. The biggest issue that I had with the first set of episodes has only worsened. And one of the show's major strengths has seemingly evaporated. And this is heavy spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen it and you're planning on seeing the show, you may want to skip, you may just want to turn the video off at this point. The downhill slide began with the 4th episode that I mentioned in the previous review. It was a weird hybrid of 2 independent 15-minute segments, the kind you find in animated kids' comedy shows. It was not structured like a regular X-Men or action cartoon type episode, which I get to a degree. It was something new that we had not seen in this genre before, which is fine if they do it well, if the stories are engaging. For me, the stories were not engaging. The first self-contained section featured Jubilee and Sunspot fighting the villainous Mojo in a living video game. And I didn't really care anything about the budding romance between the protagonists, Jubilee and Sunspot, while Mojo, who was a highlight of the original series' 2nd season, one of my favorite villain characters, one of my favorite episodes of the show, of the original show, he was a completely different character. It would have been better if the writers had utilized the comic book villain Arcade, who we didn't get to see in the original show, and I'm not sure if he's ever been adapted, maybe in X-Men Evolution. I didn't follow that show closely, and it's been a while since I've watched Wolverine and the X-Men, so maybe we have seen him adapted before, but I know we didn't see him adapted with this iteration of the group. So I think that would have been a much, much better character to use, particularly with the whole video game motif. The second half of the episode chronicled another budding romance. This one between Storm and Forge. And that relationship was much more interesting than the Jubilee Sunspot dynamic, but the episode ended abruptly when a demon owl called the Adversary, and this is a character that I'm not familiar with, as far as I know it's from the comics, appeared out of nowhere and bit Forge, attacked him and bit him. And I rewound the episode twice to make sure I hadn't missed something. That's how abrupt the ending was. And Storm's reaction to discovering that Forge was ultimately responsible for the technology that led to her losing her powers just seemed a little overly emotional for the character. Storm's a little bit more emotional, but this seemed just a little bit over for me, and that's also a problem with some of the rest of the characters, this hyper-emotionality, and I'll get to that in a minute. So then we go to episode 5, and it was set up to be this big shocker episode, and it was. It was a shocker. There were a lot of character deaths, and most notably Gambit, and also some fairly significant villains like Sebastian Shaw and Callisto. And I feel like the writers have painted themselves into a corner with all those deaths, because if the deaths stick, it'll seem like a waste. Like we really didn't get to see a lot of Sebastian Shaw with the Hellfire Club in the original series, and now his first appearance in this version, he's dead. Callisto, we saw her in a couple episodes. She wasn't that strong of a villain, but still, they could have done something with her moving forward. Gambit, obviously, huge, huge character. My second favorite character of this set of X-Men after Wolverine. But if they bring them back to life, then it's going to seem like a cheat. They're going to have to come up with some way, time travel, which we've already got Cable in the mix, so it could be a time travel reset button, bring everybody back to life. That's going to feel like a cheat. Or if they try to do cloning, or if they say, well, this wasn't the real ones, or this was some kind of holographic something, I don't know. It's going to feel cheap, and it's going to feel like a cheat. The episode also sports more of that heavy-handed dialogue that's just getting worse as the show progresses, and I gave some examples of that from the first 3 episodes in the previous reviews, so go check that out. In this episode, we also see the writers trying to force the discontinuous elements of the earlier episodes into continuity with the original series. I said in my review of the first 3 episodes that the past romantic relationship between Magneto and Rogue that was alluded to in those episodes could not have possibly occurred in the original series continuity. But that was fine as long as the show forged ahead in its own universe. Now, the writers have pinpointed the exact time of the relationship, and we find out Rogue was 16. They don't expressly say this in the episode, but if this is lining up with the original series, which they're doing their best to make it, she said it happened right after she left home. We know from the original series that she was 16 when she left home, and that would put Magneto somewhere between the ages of 50 and 60. And this is the only realistic place in the original series timeline that this relationship could have occurred. And that is just weird. It's creepy. Not cool at all. And along with other elements, this particular narrative development gives the show a transgressive, juvenile, soap operatic feel that's akin to a CW drama to me. So, we move on to episode 6. We return to the Stormforge story, which I care so little about at this point. I'm not even going to review that element of the episode. We also find out that Xavier is still alive and poised to become the new emperor of the Shi'ar Empire. And this is another example of reversing an apparent new continuity in favor of continuing the old show. Because in the first 3 episodes, the X-Men were talking among themselves that Xavier was dead. In the original series, they knew he wasn't dead. So it seemed like that this was a different continuity, that he actually had died. He hadn't survived the assassination attempt and was taken to the Shi'ar homeworld by Lilandra. Now we find out actually that was the case. So why were the X-Men talking among themselves that he was dead? That doesn't make any sense. Xavier was usually, they're not always, this calm, reasonable leader. And here he comes off as a conflicted, fickle, overly emotional romantic. Not that this would have been an issue if we weren't supposed to believe that this is the same Xavier from the original series, which now, obviously, we are. They're really hammering that the continuities are supposed to line up. And his episode arc culminates in his delivering this cranium bludgeoning diatribe about how the Shi'ar are actually evil colonizers who don't deserve their empire. And if Xavier believed that, why was he about to agree to have his memory of Earth erased in order to become the Shi'ar's new emperor? Love? I just don't buy it. It did not make sense with the character to me at all. And again, the dialogue was just so heavy-handed. Just here's the point of the show that we want you to take away from this episode. Moving on to episode 7, this was actually a huge step up from the previous 3. It was much closer in quality to the first 3 episodes. There were unexpected Marvel Universe cameos from General Ross and Captain America that serve as a tantalizing morsel of potential brand expansion. And I'm thinking the Spider-Man animated series in particular, but Captain America's cameo once again makes continuity with 90s animated Marvel difficult, because in the Spider-Man series, Captain America was trapped in this time vortex, and then in the last episode, which, if it's supposed to be in literal years, would have been a year after the last episode of X-Men, Cap goes back in that vortex. And I think I said that it was toward the end of the last season of Spider-Man. I'm not sure if I said it was the last episode. That wasn't accurate. So if they end up trying to expand the Marvel Universe and bring back Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, Iron Man, Hulk, there's discontinuity between those already, among those already, and now there's going to be discontinuity between X-Men and Spider-Man, so they're going to have to resolve that or move on with a completely different continuity, which is what they appear to be doing with this. We're also treated to a big villain reveal in this episode. It's the evolved Nimrod, who's this futuristic sentinel. It's really cool. He was introduced in season 1. And he's now called Bastion. And I don't know a whole lot about that character from the comics. I didn't really get into that storyline. And I think he's in the comics is actually a hybrid of Nimrod and Master Mold. And maybe they're going to do the same thing here. I don't know. And he's introduced by Sheb Wooley's novelty hit, Purple People Eater, which, for me, as an oldies fan, it was highlight of the show by far, and it fit the whole vibe. And we also, I think the last time we saw Nimrod, he was blown away by Bishop in the 50s, which is apparently how he got stuck here, is where I'm guessing they're going. So a song from that era works perfectly. My biggest complaints with this episode are the more tell, don't show dialogue and unbridled emotion from every character, regardless of their previously established temperament. Sure, they're all compromised by the time we get to episode 7 because of the devastation wrought among their people. They got friends dead, families dead, plus a whole bunch of other stuff that happened leading up to that. But the characters were already overly emotional before the Genosha massacre in episode 5. in the original series, Wolverine was the most emotional and irrational by far, berserker rage. And then you had the emotion to reason ratio varied among the other characters, culminating probably in Xavier and Beast on the most logical end of the spectrum and emotionally controlled, although sometimes, they would lose it. But in this show, everybody just seems to be an emotional wreck from day one. And you can explain it by, they're still recovering from, still mourning Professor X's loss, which when we find out, we know he's not actually dead, he's just left. So why are they... I mean, I would take comfort in the fact knowing that he was there and could possibly come back and wasn't just dead. And on the original series, when stable characters lost control, it was rare and it was also understandable. And regardless of whatever the crisis was, they always managed to overcome it and maintain their core character. What happened to that? That's nowhere to be seen in this new iteration of the show. I think this is a problem with modern storytelling or storytellers in general. In the last few decades, there's so much real-life emphasis on exploring feelings and getting in touch with your feelings that fictional characters acting out of anything other than their emotional center has become unfathomable, because we as creators, particularly creative types, I'm a little bit different. I feel like I'm less emotional than a lot of creators, a lot of storytellers, but creative types are emotional. They understand emotions. They understand characters acting from that. With the culture focusing on emotion over the last few decades, it's just become like that's the motivation, that's where everybody acts from. And that's just not the case. It's not the truth, and it doesn't ring true to me with these characters. And frankly, if I weren't watching the show in order to review it, I would have dropped it after that 6th episode, because the 6th episode for me was just so flat, and the characterizations didn't make any sense. The dialogue was so clunky. So, as it stands, I'm going to downgrade my rating on this to a 6/10 quality and a 5 out of 10 personal enjoyment. And we'll see how the last 3 episodes stack up. Alright, so this is going to be a bonus segment here. I wasn't going to do this. I was going to save it for... I originally thought I was going to do it. Then I said I wasn't going to do it. I'll save it for a different episode. But it seems like a good segue. We're also only a little over 30 minutes here. So, have we been secretly put in YouTube jail? Strange thing happened. Views were down on the channel. As we ended last year, we were doing like a minimum 100 views on the lowest watched episode. I could put out basically anything, we'd get 100 views. Guaranteed. January hits. January is always annually the worst month for YouTube creators because people are coming off the holiday. They're not necessarily on YouTube as much during January. Okay, fine, got it. So our view count drops. It was expected. January 30th, we put out a video with me and our producer Kyle Graves, and I'm showing him Roy Clark playing Malaguena. It goes viral. We're currently at 105,000 views, which I realize for a lot of channels that's nothing. For us, it's our biggest video by far. So we're like, all right, we're back in business. The next day, January 31st, I released a clip from an episode of this podcast, the episode we did in December, where I was talking about Disney adapting Gargoyles in live action. And I wasn't mean. I never get mean, but I was kind of negative. No, I wasn't kind of negative. I was definitely negative on Disney Plus, and said I wasn't looking forward to the project anymore. I didn't feel like it was going to make it because the Disney Plus offerings have been less than stellar. I put that clip out, and it got like 61 views or something, which for us, for our lowest viewed videos over the last year, that was incredibly low. And originally that episode came out on the podcast channel. We had a separate podcast channel, which we're not managing anymore. We're putting everything on the Randomine Records channel now. But whenever we were putting the videos up on the podcast channel, we only had 24 subscribers on that channel. And some of our videos were getting like 200, 250 views, which meant that YouTube was heavily pushing that out to people, or we wouldn't be getting 10 times the number of views that we have subscribers. Meanwhile, we're putting out the same type of videos now on the Randomine Records channel with, at the time, I think we had like 4,000, 4,500 subscribers and growing, and we're getting nowhere near the number that we were getting when we were on a podcast channel that had basically no subscribers. So that seems a little fishy right off. I didn't really think anything about it, well, that first video. So the next week, that entire week, our view count is down. The next week, I put out a video doing a trailer reaction to a property that is owned by Disney. And I wasn't really negative on it, but I also was not overly positive, and I was kind of like, yeah, I'll wait and see on this one. I think it was the Planet of the Apes was that next trailer, the new Planet of the Apes film. And that didn't get a lot of views, and our view count continued to drop. And over the next couple of weeks, I did another couple of trailer reactions to Disney-owned properties that I wasn't really feeling. I'm not going to lie about it. I'm not going to be unduly harsh, but yeah, I'm not going to lie about my opinion on them. That would be unfair to anybody watching the thing. And our view counts continue to drop. And I'm talking about, like, even we do a lot of home free reactions, right? Home free, generally, we're guaranteed like 2,000 views. And whenever I started doing that, the home free stuff started going down. Angelina Jordan, we were getting 10,000 plus views on her reactions to her music. That dropped to like 3,000. And that was weird. So I immediately, my first thought is it me? I always look at myself. If I'm having failure, I'm going to look at me. And since I'm the one that is the face of the channel, doing most of the stuff behind the scenes, even though we've got Kyle and some other people working with us behind the scenes, it's all on me. I take full responsibility. So I'm thinking, have people gotten tired of my commentary? Have we changed our thumbnail styles? Are they not as appealing? I don't think that's it. I think they look a lot better than they used to. But maybe it's something like that. We're just not grabbing people. And then I decided, well, let me go on the back end and look at the numbers. So I did. And all of our percentages were the same. We had the same consistent percentages on likes to dislike ratios. We had the same percentages on click-through rates, which means the percentage of people that clicked on the videos after they saw it pop up on their feed or suggested videos. So what that means is, since our views were down and all the percentages remained the same, that means that YouTube was not pushing these videos out, had stopped pushing these videos out at the level they were pushing them out before we started dropping videos that were critical of Disney. Now, I can't prove, and this sounds like a total conspiracy theory, I can't prove that YouTube and Disney have some kind of deal and YouTube is throttling us and maybe other channels for being critical of Disney. But I don't see any other explanation when I look at the numbers, particularly since after I laid off for about a month of doing any kind of Disney-related videos, all of our numbers started going back up. And the percentages stayed the same, which means that YouTube started pushing our videos out more. So, again, I don't have proof. I do have evidence, no proof. So, we're probably fixing to, when I put this up that has that giant critique of X-Men. And it's funny, I'll say this too, the last review I put up of X-Men 97, even though I was overall positive, our numbers went down there too. Not our percentages, but the hard numbers, meaning YouTube, again, throttled us. So, could be coincidence. I don't think so. But we'll see what happens this time whenever I put this episode out. If I put the full episode out on YouTube, or if I've just got the clip of the X-Men 97 second review. We'll see, but if that's the case, guys, that's not cool. It's not fair to us as creators who are here being honest with our content, putting a lot of time and effort into these videos to get them out, and it's also not fair to viewers who might want to actually see our content. And I know we've got a lot because we were picking up a lot and we were doing it on the podcast channel, and also our subscriber total has been going up this entire time. So the fact that our subscriber base is just exploded, like we've added another 1,300 subs since we got throttled, yet our views steadily went down. That doesn't make a lot of sense unless there's some kind of algorithm manipulation there. But anyway, so not happy about that. Let us know in the comments, what do you think? You think I'm off base here? You think we're crazy? You think maybe it's just a coincidence? You think maybe we are doing something that's preventing people from checking out our videos in the volume they were before? Have you heard of other creators having this same problem? Let us know in the comments if you're watching and listening to this on a platform that allows for comments. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Hope to get another one out on the RSS feed by the end of May. We may have the full video version of that episode up by then too. So y'all stay tuned, and we'll see you then.
Can't have no words like that.
Theme, Words Like That by Powell. Lead in by Ryan Percy. From Wicked Woman by Four-Way Stop. Original cover photo by Kelly Bagwell. Recorded at Randomine Records. Section 107 of U.S. copyright law allows for the fair use of copyrighted material for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, parody, or research.